I am not antisocial. I'm anti-fake. The psychology of protecting your peace. Chapter 1. You're not antisocial. You're emotionally selective. Imagine standing in the middle of a crowded room. Music fills the air. Conversations overlap. Laughter echoes from every corner. Everyone seems to be enjoying themselves. Yet somehow you feel exhausted. Not because you dislike people. Not because you're shy. Not because something is wrong with you. But because your mind quietly whispers, I'd rather be somewhere peaceful. If you ever felt this way, you probably heard the same labels over and over again. You're too quiet. You should socialize more. Why don't you come out with us? You're becoming antisocial. Eventually, you begin wondering if they're right. Maybe something is wrong with you. Maybe you're becoming distant. Maybe you're missing out on life. But what if the opposite is true? What if you aren't antisocial at all? What if you simply become emotionally selective? There is an important difference. An antisocial person avoids people because they dislike society. An emotionally selective person avoids unnecessary relationships because they value peace. One rejects humanity. The other protects their energy. Those are not the same thing. Unfortunately, modern society often mistakes solitude for loneliness. If you enjoy spending time alone, people assume you're unhappy. If you decline invitations, they assume you're depressed. If your circle is small, they assume something is missing. But history tells another story. Many of the world's greatest thinkers, artists, inventors, and leaders spent enormous amounts of time alone, not because they hated people, because solitude gave them something crowds rarely could: clarity. Imagine trying to see your reflection in a lake during a storm. The water is constantly moving. Nothing is clear. Now imagine the same lake early in the morning, perfectly still. Only then can you see yourself. The mind works exactly the same way. Constant noise makes self-awareness impossible. Solitude allows you to hear your own thoughts instead of everyone else's opinions. This is why time alone feels restorative rather than lonely. It isn't isolation. It's recovery. Think about your phone battery. Even the most powerful smartphone eventually needs to recharge. No one calls it broken because it needs electricity. Yet people often criticize themselves for needing emotional rest. Your mind deserves the same respect. Rest is not weakness. Recovery is not failure. Solitude is not loneliness. There's another misunderstanding worth addressing. Many people believe the goal of life is to know as many people as possible. But ask yourself a simple question. Would you rather have one friend who would answer your call at 3 a.m, or 1,000 acquaintances who barely remember your birthday? Depth has always been more valuable than numbers. A tree survives storms because its roots grow deep, not because they spread everywhere. Relationships follow the same principle. The strongest connections are rarely the largest. They are the deepest. There comes a moment in life when your priorities begin to change. As a child, popularity feels important. As a teenager, fitting in feels essential. As an adult, peace becomes priceless. You stop asking, how many people like me? And begin asking, who truly knows me? That question changes everything. Because genuine connection cannot be forced. It grows naturally. It grows through trust, honesty, shared values, mutual respect, not constant proximity. You can spend years around someone without truly knowing them. You can meet another person for an hour and feel completely understood. Quality always outweighs quantity. There is also a biological reason some people need more solitude. Not every mind processes the world the same way. Some people gain energy from constant interaction. Others spend energy during interaction. Neither is better. They are simply different. The problem begins when society insists one personality is superior. It praises those who always speak, those who always attend, those who always perform. Meanwhile, the quiet observer is often overlooked. Yet observation has always been one of humanity's greatest strengths. The listener notices what the talker misses. The observer sees patterns hidden beneath appearances. Silence creates awareness. Awareness creates wisdom. This doesn't mean avoiding people forever. Humans are built for connection, but meaningful connection, not endless interaction. There's an enormous difference. Imagine drinking seawater. because you're thirsty. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. Some relationships work the same way. You spend hours together, yet afterward you feel empty. Other relationships are like fresh spring water. Even a short conversation leaves you feeling lighter, more peaceful, more understanding. Learn the difference. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your energy. Your attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Spend it wisely. There will always be people who misunderstand your quiet nature. Some will call you distant. Others will call you arrogant. Some may even believe you're unfriendly. Don't allow labels to define you. People judge behavior. They rarely understand motivation. Only you know why you seek solitude. Only you know what restores your spirit. Remember this. There is nothing unhealthy about protecting your peace. There is nothing wrong with enjoying your own company. In fact, one of the greatest signs of emotional maturity is becoming comfortable with yourself. When you enjoy your own presence, you stop tolerating relationships that disturb your peace simply because you're afraid of being alone. Loneliness no longer controls your decisions. You begin choosing people out of connection, not desperation. That changes every relationship you will ever have. The strongest people are not those surrounded by the largest crowds. They are those who can stand alone without feeling incomplete because they have discovered a beautiful truth. Solitude is not the absence of connection. It is the presence of yourself. And once you become comfortable with that, you stop fearing being alone. You begin fearing the wrong company instead. That is not being antisocial. That is becoming emotionally wise. Chapter 2. Understanding Fake People. There's an old saying, not everyone who smiles at you is happy to see you. At first, those words may sound cynical, but life has a way of proving them true. Most people don't meet the real version of others. They meet carefully constructed versions. A mask, a performance, an image designed to be accepted. The strange thing is, many people wear these masks for so long that they forget who they really are. Why? Because human beings crave acceptance. From childhood, we learn that approval feels rewarding. We are praised for fitting in, corrected for standing out. Slowly, without realizing it, we begin shaping ourselves around other people's expectations. The authentic self becomes quieter. The performance grows louder. This is how fake people are created. Not through evil intentions, through fear. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. Think of an actor who performs the same role every day. Eventually, they begin speaking like the character, thinking like the character, feeling like the character. The line between performance and identity becomes blurred. Many people live exactly this way. Different personality at work, different personality online, different personality with friends, different personality with family. Always adapting, always performing, always exhausted. Because pretending requires energy. Authenticity does not. One of the easiest ways to recognize a fake person is consistency, or rather, the lack of it. Notice how they treat people who cannot benefit them. Watch how they speak about others when those people leave the room. Observe whether their values change depending on who is watching. Character is revealed when there is nothing to gain. Anyone can appear kind when kindness is profitable. Anyone can appear loyal when loyalty is convenient. Integrity begins where convenience ends. This is why actions always matter more than words. Words are inexpensive. Promises are effortless. Appearances are easy to create. Patterns are much harder to fake. Time reveals what performance hides. Another common trait of fake people is their obsession with image. They spend more time managing perception than improving reality. They want to appear successful more than they want to become successful. Appear confident instead of building confidence. Appear generous instead of practicing generosity. Appear happy instead of creating a meaningful life. Image becomes everything. Reality becomes secondary. But appearances eventually collapse. Truth is patient. It doesn't rush. It simply waits. Eventually, every mask becomes too heavy to wear. Perhaps the most dangerous fake people are not the loud ones. They are the charming ones. The people who tell everyone exactly what they want to hear. They flatter easily, agree constantly, Change opinions depending on the audience. At first, they seem pleasant. Over time, you realize you've never actually met the real person, only reflections of everyone around them. Authentic people don't need to agree with everyone. They can disagree respectfully. They can say no without guilt. They remain the same person regardless of who enters the room. That consistency builds trust. Fake people seek approval. Real people seek alignment. There is a difference. One asks, how can I make them like me? The other asks, am I being true to myself? The second question creates peace. The first creates exhaustion. Ironically, fake people often attract large crowds. Authentic people attract genuine relationships. One gathers attention. The other builds trust. Trust always lasts longer. This chapter is not about judging others. It is about understanding them. When you realize that most fake behavior comes from insecurity rather than confidence, something changes. You stop taking it personally. You stop chasing approval from people who are still searching for their own identity. You feel compassion without sacrificing your boundaries. And perhaps the most important lesson is this. Before worrying about fake people around you, ask whether you've been wearing masks yourself. Have you stayed silent to fit in? Laughed at things you didn't find funny? Pretended to agree because disagreement felt uncomfortable? We've all done it. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is awareness. Because authenticity begins the moment you stop performing for the world and start living honestly with yourself. The more authentic you become, the fewer people will understand you, but the people who remain will finally know the real you, and those relationships are worth more than 1,000 performances. Chapter 3. Stop explaining yourself. Imagine planting an oak tree in your backyard. Every morning, your neighbors walk by. One says it's growing too slowly. Another says you planted it in the wrong place. Someone else insists you should have chosen a different tree altogether. Now imagine spending every day trying to convince each neighbor that your choice was correct. You stop watering the tree. You stop caring for the roots. Instead, you spend all your time defending your decision. Years later, the tree never reaches its full height, not because the seed was bad, but because your attention was divided. Life works the same way. Every minute you spend explaining yourself is a minute you're not becoming yourself. One of the greatest burdens people carry is the need to be understood by everyone. We want our choices to make sense to others. We want our dreams to be approved, our boundaries to be accepted, our silence to be interpreted correctly. But there is a difficult truth that many never learn. Not everyone is meant to understand your journey. And that's okay. Think about the last time someone misunderstood you. Maybe they thought you were rude because you preferred solitude. Maybe they believed you were arrogant because you didn't seek attention. Maybe they assumed you had changed simply because you stopped tolerating behavior that once exhausted you. Your first instinct was probably to explain yourself, to clear the misunderstanding, to defend your intentions. Why? Because the human mind craves acceptance. We naturally want people to see us the way we see ourselves. But here's the problem. Some people have already decided who you are. No explanation will change their mind. Imagine trying to convince someone wearing red-tinted glasses that the sky is blue. No matter how beautifully you explain it, they will continue seeing red. Not because you're wrong, because they're looking through a different lens. People don't see you as you are. They see you through the lens of their own experiences. Someone who fears abandonment may interpret your need for space as rejection. Someone who constantly seeks approval may mistake your independence for arrogance. Someone who lives for appearances may never understand your desire for authenticity. You cannot control the lens through which others view you. Trying to do so is exhausting. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must choose between two impossible goals: being authentic or being universally understood. You cannot have both. Authenticity naturally filters people. Some will appreciate it, others won't. The moment you stop pretending, you discover who truly accepts you. That discovery is priceless. Many people spend years explaining decisions they never needed permission to make. Why they left a toxic relationship, why they changed careers, why they declined an invitation, why they chose peace over popularity. Every explanation is an unconscious request for approval, but approval is a dangerous addiction. The more you seek it, the more dependent you become on it. Soon, your decisions no longer belong to you. They belong to the opinions of everyone around you. That is not freedom. That is emotional imprisonment. Imagine carrying a backpack. Every time you worry about someone else's opinion, you place another stone inside it. Every unnecessary explanation, another stone. Every attempt to make everyone understand, another stone. Eventually, the backpack becomes so heavy that simply walking through life feels exhausting. The strange part is this: no one asked you to carry it. You picked it up yourself. And that means you can also put it down. There's incredible peace in realizing that misunderstanding is not always a problem solved. Sometimes, it is simply a reality to accept. Not everyone deserves access to your reasoning. Not everyone has earned the right to know your story. Privacy is not secrecy. It is self-respect. You don't owe the world an explanation for protecting your peace. You don't owe people an apology for outgrowing environments that no longer help you grow. Growth often looks like betrayal to those who benefit from your old habits. When you become healthier, people accustomed to your unhealthy boundaries may accuse you of changing. They're right. You have changed. That's called progress. The tree doesn't apologize for growing taller. The butterfly doesn't apologize for leaving the cocoon. Why should you apologize for becoming the person you're meant to be? There's another reason to stop explaining yourself. Words rarely convince people. Actions do. Imagine telling someone you're trustworthy every single day. Or simply becoming a person whose actions consistently demonstrate trustworthiness. Which approach is more powerful? The answer is obvious. Truth doesn't need constant advertising. It reveals itself over time. People may doubt your intentions today. Your consistency will answer them tomorrow. There's an old principle that wise people quietly understand. The more you explain, the weaker your position often appears. This doesn't mean refusing to communicate. It means knowing the difference between clarification and justification. Clarification creates understanding. Justification seeks permission. One comes from confidence. The other often comes from fear. Confident people don't feel the need to defend every choice. They know that disagreement is part of life. Imagine a mountain. Every traveler sees it differently. Some admire its beauty. Others complain about the climb. Some photograph it. Others ignore it completely. The mountain never changes itself to satisfy every observer. It simply remains what it is. There is wisdom in that. The strongest people are like mountains. They are steady, grounded, unaffected by every passing opinion. They listen, they reflect, but they do not surrender their identity to every voice they hear. This doesn't mean becoming stubborn. Sometimes criticism contains truth. Wise people remain open to learning. But there is a difference between accepting constructive advice and living for constant approval. One helps you grow. The other prevents you from growing at all. Ask yourself a simple question. Am I explaining this because they genuinely need to understand or because I need them to prove? That question can transform your life. Most explanations come from fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of being disliked. Fear of disappointing people. But here's something remarkable. The people who truly care about you usually don't demand endless explanations. They ask. They listen. They trust. Those who constantly require you to defend yourself often aren't looking for understanding. They're looking for control. Don't confuse the two. As you become more emotionally mature, something beautiful begins to happen. Your silence becomes peaceful instead of uncomfortable. You no longer rush to defend your character. You stop correcting every false assumption. You stop chasing every misunderstanding. Not because you become indifferent, but because you become secure. Security is quiet. It doesn't panic when someone disagrees. It doesn't crumble when someone misunderstands. It simply continues living according to its values. Imagine the sun rising each morning. It doesn't send invitations. It doesn't explain why it shines. It simply does what it was created to do. Eventually, everyone notices. Your life should be the same. Instead of explaining your dreams, pursue them. Instead of defending your boundaries, maintain them. Instead of convincing people you've changed, become undeniable. Because the greatest response to misunderstanding is not a better explanation, it is a better life. In time, your peace will speak louder than your arguments. Your consistency will speak louder than your promises. Your character will speak louder than your words. And one day, you'll realize something that changes everything. The people who matter never needed all those explanations in the first place. And the people who demanded them were never going to understand anyway. So stop carrying the weight of everyone else's opinions. Stop seeking permission to become who you already are. Walk your path. Protect your peace. Let your actions tell your story. Because the most authentic lives are not built by explaining every decision. They are built by quietly living them. Chapter 4. Protect your energy. Imagine waking up every morning with 100 gold coins in your pocket. You cannot earn more. You cannot borrow from tomorrow. And whatever remains at the end of the day simply disappears. How carefully would you spend those coins? You wouldn't waste them on meaningless purchases. You wouldn't hand them to strangers simply because they asked. You would spend each one intentionally. Now imagine those coins are your energy. Every conversation, every argument, every worry, every distraction, every relationship costs something. The problem is that most people guard their money more carefully than they guard their energy. They'll think twice before spending $20, but they'll spend 3 hours arguing with someone who has no intention of understanding them. They'll carefully protect their savings, yet they'll allow a single negative person to steal their peace for an entire day. Energy is your greatest currency. Everything you accomplish depends on it. Your dreams require it. Your relationships require it. Your health depends on it. Your future is built with it. And unlike money, once a day has passed, you never get that energy back. Think about the people in your life. Have you ever noticed how some conversations leave you feeling lighter? You feel inspired, motivated, peaceful, hopeful. Even after hours together, you somehow have more energy than when you started. Then there are other conversations. Just 15 minutes can leave you emotionally exhausted. Nothing dramatic happened. No argument. No conflict. Yet somehow you feel completely drained. Why? Because not all relationships consume energy equally. Some people recharge your spirit. Others slowly empty it. Learning the difference may be one of the most important skills you'll ever develop. Imagine your mind as a beautiful garden. Every thought you entertain is a seed. Every person you allow inside becomes a gardener. Some people water your confidence. They encourage your growth. They celebrate your progress. Others plant weeds, doubt, negativity, fear, resentment. Eventually, your garden becomes whatever you've allowed to grow there. Protecting your energy means becoming selective about who holds a watering can. This doesn't mean judging people. It means recognizing influence. Whether we admit it or not, emotions are contagious. Spend enough time around hopeful people, you begin believing more is possible. Spend enough time around people who complain about everything. Soon, the world itself begins looking darker. Energy travels quietly. You absorb more than you realize. This is why your environment matters. Imagine placing a piece of charcoal beside a white shirt. Eventually, the shirt begins to change. Not because it wanted to, simply because of proximity. People affect us in much the same way. The attitudes surrounding you eventually become the attitudes within you. Choose your environment wisely. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing they must be available to everyone. Every phone call, every invitation, every request, every emotional crisis. They say yes because saying no feels uncomfortable. At first, it seems kind. Eventually, it becomes exhausting. You cannot pour from an empty cup. This phrase has become popular because it contains profound truth. Imagine trying to light another candle while your own flame has already gone out. You have nothing left to give. Restoring your own light is not selfish. It's responsible, because the healthier you become, the more genuinely you can help others. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors. A wall keeps everyone out. A boundary simply decides who is allowed in. Healthy people understand this difference. They love deeply, but they also protect themselves wisely. Imagine owning a beautiful home. Would you hand every stranger a key simply because they smiled at you? Of course not. Trust is earned. Your emotional life deserves the same protection. Not everyone deserves unrestricted access to your heart. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your time. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your peace. Access should always be earned. There is another thief of energy that often goes unnoticed: overthinking. The mind has an incredible ability to replay conversations that ended hours ago. Why did they say that? What should I have said instead? Do they still like me? What if they misunderstood me? One conversation becomes 100 imaginary conversations. One comment becomes an endless internal debate, all without changing reality. Overthinking is like rocking in a chair. You move constantly, but you never actually go anywhere. Peace begins when you recognize which thoughts deserve your attention, and which ones deserve to pass like clouds across the sky. Not every thought is true. Not every worry deserves belief. Not every emotion requires action. Observe them. Don't obey them. There is remarkable freedom in learning to let things go. Some people carry yesterday's arguments into today, last year's disappointments into this year, old resentments into new relationships. Imagine carrying a heavy suitcase everywhere you go. Eventually, you forget how heavy it has become, until one day, you finally put it down. Only then do you realize how much lighter life feels. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. It is not saying what happened was acceptable. It is deciding that what happened will no longer control your future. Forgiveness protects your energy. Resentment consumes it. There is also wisdom in choosing your battles carefully. Not every disagreement deserves a debate. Not every criticism deserves a reply. Not every invitation deserves your presence. Ask yourself, will this matter a year from now? If the answer is no, it probably doesn't deserve your peace today. The most emotionally mature people are not those who never face conflict. They are the ones who recognize which conflicts are worth their energy. Imagine an archer carrying only 10 arrows. Would they fire them at every bird that flies past? Or would they save them for what truly matters? Your attention works the same way. Spend it deliberately, because whatever receives your attention receives your life. One of the most beautiful changes that comes with maturity is this: you stop asking, who likes me, and begin asking, who brings out the best in me? That question changes every relationship. Some people inspire courage. Others feed insecurity. Some encourage your dreams. Others quietly laugh at them. Some celebrate your growth. Others resent it. Pay attention. People reveal themselves over time. Believe their patterns more than their promises. As your life becomes quieter, you'll notice something surprising. Peace is productive. Your thoughts become clearer. Your decisions become wiser. Your creativity returns. You sleep better. You smile more easily. Not because life became easier, because you stopped giving your energy to everything that demanded it. Remember this: every day, life hands you a limited amount of emotional currency. Spend it on purpose. Spend it on growth. Spend it on people who value your presence. Spend it on dreams worth building. Spend it on becoming the person you were created to be. Do not waste it proving yourself to people who have already chosen not to understand you. Do not waste it arguing with those committed to misunderstanding you. Do not waste it carrying burdens that were never yours, because your energy is your life. Protect it carefully. Guard it wisely. Invest it intentionally. And you'll discover something extraordinary. The more you protect your peace, the more powerful your presence becomes. Not because you have become harder, but because you have become impossible to drain. Chapter 5. Build real relationships. Imagine standing in a forest. At first glance, every tree appears to be growing alone. Each has its own trunk, its own branches, its own leaves. But beneath the surface, something remarkable is happening. The roots are connected. Scientists have discovered that forests are held together by vast underground networks where trees share nutrients, send warnings about danger, and even help weaker trees survive. The strongest forests are not made of the tallest trees. They are made of connected ones. Human beings are no different. We often believe success is an individual achievement, that the strongest people need no one, that independence means doing everything alone. But true strength has never been about isolation. It has always been about connection. Not many connections, meaningful ones. There is a world of difference. Modern society measures relationships by numbers, followers, friends, contacts, connections. The bigger the number, the more successful someone appears. But numbers can be deceiving. A phone full of contacts cannot replace one person who truly understands you. Thousands of followers cannot replace one loyal friend. Popularity creates visibility. Trust creates security. One fades quickly. The other lasts a lifetime. Think about the people you've met over the years. Many entered your life for a season. Some taught you lessons. Some brought joy. Others brought pain. Most quietly disappeared. Very few remained. And perhaps that is exactly how life is supposed to be. Not everyone is meant to stay. Imagine carrying every person you've ever met on your shoulders. Eventually, you wouldn't be able to walk. Growth often requires letting go, not because people are bad, but because some relationships belong to chapters you've already finished. There is wisdom in accepting that. One of the greatest mistakes people make is confusing familiarity with friendship. Just because you've known someone for 10 years doesn't mean they know your heart. Time alone doesn't create trust. Character does. You can work beside someone every day for decades and never build a genuine relationship. At the same time, one honest conversation with the right person can create a connection that lasts a lifetime. Depth always outweighs duration. Ask yourself a simple question. Who can you call when life falls apart? Not when life is exciting. Not when everything is going well. When everything goes wrong. Your answer reveals the true size of your circle. Many people have crowds. Few have community. Community is different. Community celebrates your victories without jealousy. Community tells you difficult truths with kindness. Community stays when convenience disappears. That kind of relationship cannot be purchased. It can only be earned. And earning it requires becoming the kind of person others can trust. Notice something interesting. Everyone wants loyal friends. Few ask whether they are loyal themselves. Everyone wants honesty. Few consistently practice it. Everyone wants understanding. Few truly listen. Relationships are mirrors. Often, what we receive reflects what we consistently give. Imagine planting an apple tree. You cannot expect oranges to grow. Likewise, if you plant kindness, trust, patience, respect, those qualities eventually return, not always from the same people, but always through life. The greatest relationships are built on generosity, not transactions. Transactional relationships ask, "What can I get from you?" Authentic relationships ask, "How can we grow together?" One consumes, the other contributes. This is why some people leave you feeling used. Everything revolves around their needs, their problems, their victories, their stories. The relationship becomes one-sided. Healthy relationships breathe differently. There is balance. Both people listen. Both people encourage. Both people carry the weight when necessary. No one keeps score, because love was never meant to be accounting. There is another truth many people discover too late. Not everyone deserves access to the deepest parts of you. Trust should be built slowly. Imagine building a bridge across a river. Would you drive a heavy truck across it before testing the foundation? Of course not. Yet people often hand complete trust to someone they've known for only a few days. Trust is not given because someone asks for it. It is built through consistency. Small promise after small promise. Small act after small act. Over time, reliability becomes undeniable. The strongest bridges are built one beam at a time. So are the strongest relationships. One conversation. One act of kindness. One kept promise. Again and again. Consistency creates confidence. There is also tremendous wisdom in paying attention to how people behave when they have nothing to gain. Watch how they treat waiters, cashiers, children, strangers. Notice whether they speak kindly about people who aren't present. Observe whether their character changes depending on who enters the room. Integrity is what remains when applause disappears. Character is who someone becomes when no one is watching. Believe patterns, not performances. One of the most beautiful gifts you can give another person is your full attention, not advice, not solutions. Attention. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, becoming someone who truly listens is rare. People rarely remember every word you spoke. They remember how safe they felt speaking to you. Safety creates honesty. Honesty creates intimacy. Intimacy creates trust. Trust creates relationships that survive storms. There will be storms. Every meaningful relationship experiences misunderstanding, disappointment, conflict, difference. The goal is not to avoid these moments. The goal is to handle them with maturity. Pride says, win the argument. Love says, protect the relationship. That doesn't mean accepting disrespect. Healthy relationships require healthy boundaries. You can love someone while refusing unhealthy behavior. You can forgive someone without giving them unlimited access to your life again. Forgiveness heals the heart. Boundaries protect it. The strongest relationships respect both. As you grow, your relationships will naturally change. Some people will celebrate your growth. Others will become uncomfortable because your boundaries expose their expectations. Do not fear this. Growth always reveals who is attached to your potential and who is attached to your availability. The people meant for your future will respect the person you are becoming. They won't ask you to shrink to make them comfortable. Perhaps the greatest relationship you will ever build is the one you have with yourself, because every other relationship grows from it. If you don't respect yourself, you'll tolerate disrespect from others. If you don't value your time, others won't either. If you cannot enjoy your own company, you'll settle for company that destroys your peace. Everything begins within. When you become whole, you stop looking for people to complete you. Instead, you look for people who complement the life you've already built. That changes everything. You no longer chase. You choose. You no longer cling. You connect. You no longer fear being alone. You fear losing yourself. Remember this. The richest life is not measured by how many people know your name. It is measured by how many people know your heart. Build relationships slowly. Protect them carefully. Nurture them honestly. Choose people who inspire your growth rather than your insecurity. Become the kind of friend you hope to find, because, in the end, success may fill your calendar. Achievement may fill your bank account. Recognition may fill a room. But only genuine relationships will fill your soul, and that is a wealth no amount of popularity can ever replace. Chapter 6. The Power of Silence. Imagine walking into a room where everyone is talking. Voices overlap. Opinions collide. Everyone is trying to be heard. Now imagine one person who says almost nothing. They simply observe. They listen. They smile occasionally. When they finally speak, the room becomes quiet. Why? Because words become valuable when they are rare. Silence has a strange power. The world often mistakes it for weakness. People assume that the quiet person lacks confidence, that they have nothing to say, that they are timid or uncertain. But some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are the ones who have learned that not every thought deserves to become a sentence. There's a profound difference between being silent because you're afraid and being silent because you're in control. One comes from insecurity. The other comes from strength. Think about an archer aiming at a target. Before releasing the arrow, there is complete stillness. No unnecessary movement. No wasted energy. Just focus. Silence works the same way. It creates space between impulse and action. And in that space, wisdom is born. Most people speak to be noticed. Wise people speak to add value. Imagine pouring water into a glass. If the glass is constantly overflowing, no more water can enter. The mind behaves in much the same way. When you're always talking, you're rarely learning. When you're always explaining, you're rarely observing. When you're always responding, you're rarely understanding. Silence creates room for growth. One of the greatest advantages of saying less is that people begin revealing themselves. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. The moment a conversation pauses, they rush to fill it. They explain more, reveal more. Sometimes they even expose truths they never intended to share. The patient observer doesn't interrupt. They simply listen, not to manipulate, but to understand. Because understanding has always been more powerful than assumptions. Think back to someone you deeply respected. Chances are they didn't interrupt every conversation. They didn't argue over every opinion. They didn't constantly remind everyone how intelligent they were. Their calmness created confidence. Their restraint created authority. People trusted them because they knew every word had been chosen carefully. The loudest person in the room often receives attention. The calmest person often earns respect. There's another hidden gift that silence offers. It protects your peace. Imagine someone insults you. Your first instinct is to defend yourself, to prove them wrong, to win the argument. But ask yourself, what changes if I win? Often, nothing. The argument continues. The misunderstanding remains. Only now you've sacrificed your peace to protect your pride. Not every attack deserves a response. Not every criticism deserves your attention. Silence is not surrender. It is discernment. It is recognizing that your energy is too valuable to spend on battles that cannot improve your life. A lion does not turn around every time a monkey throws something at it. If it did, it would never continue its journey. Likewise, if you respond to every criticism, every insult, every opinion, you'll spend your life reacting instead of living. Learn to keep walking. People often say, speak your truth. That is good advice. But there is another truth rarely mentioned. Know when your truth requires silence. Not every person deserves your explanation. Not every audience deserves your vulnerability. Some people ask questions because they care. Others ask because they want information to judge you. Wisdom knows the difference. Silence also protects your dreams. How many goals have disappeared because they were shared too early? How many ambitions have been crushed beneath someone else's doubt? Sometimes a seed must remain underground before it becomes a tree. If you constantly dig it up to show everyone your progress, it never grows. Your dreams deserve the same protection. Build quietly, improve quietly, grow quietly. Let success become the announcement. Imagine two builders constructing identical houses. The first spends every day talking about how magnificent the finished home will be. The second says almost nothing. They simply continue laying bricks. Months later, only one house stands complete. The world remembers finished work, not endless promises. Silence creates discipline. It shifts your focus away from appearances and toward action. There's another reason silence feels uncomfortable. It forces you to face yourself. When the television is off, the music stops, the phone is put away, and the room becomes quiet, you finally hear your own thoughts. Many people fear silence because they have spent years avoiding themselves. But growth begins the moment you become comfortable with your own company. In silence, you notice patterns, habits, dreams, fears. You begin asking questions that busy lives never allow. Am I living according to my values? What truly matters? Who am I becoming? Noise distracts. Silence reveals. The greatest decisions are rarely made in chaos. They are made in moments of reflection. Some of history's greatest ideas were born during long walks, quiet mornings, or peaceful evenings. Not because silence magically creates intelligence, because silence allows intelligence to surface. There's also immense strength in silent confidence. An insecure person constantly needs to prove themselves. They interrupt. They compete. They dominate conversations. They fear being overlooked. A secure person understands that value does not disappear simply because it isn't announced. The diamond remains valuable even if no one sees it. Your character should be the same. Let your integrity speak. Let your consistency speak. Let your actions speak. Words become unnecessary when your life tells a story. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally distant. It doesn't mean refusing to communicate. Healthy silence is not avoidance. It is intentional. Speak when your words improve the moment. Remain silent when they don't. There is wisdom in asking yourself before every conversation. Is what I'm about to say true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If the answer is no, silence may be the wiser choice. As you begin practicing silence, you'll notice something remarkable. You become harder to manipulate, harder to provoke, harder to distract. Because emotional reactions lose their power over you. People can no longer pull you into every argument, every rumor, every unnecessary conflict. Your peace becomes stronger than your pride. And perhaps that is one of life's greatest freedoms. The freedom not to react. The freedom not to explain. The freedom not to prove yourself. Just because someone invites you into chaos doesn't mean you have to accept. Remember this. The deepest rivers flow quietly. The tallest mountains never announce their height. The brightest stars shine without making a sound. Nature has always understood what humanity often forgets. True power doesn't need to be loud. So embrace silence. Listen more than you speak. Observe more than you judge. Reflect more than you react. Because a person who has mastered silence has already mastered one of the greatest forms of strength. In a world overflowing with noise, your quiet presence will become impossible to ignore. Chapter 7. Stop chasing approval. Imagine spending your entire life running on a treadmill. You run faster. You work harder. You sweat. You push yourself to exhaustion. Yet, no matter how much effort you give, you remain exactly where you started. That is what chasing approval feels like. No matter how many people applaud you today, tomorrow you'll want more. No matter how many compliments you receive, one criticism will steal your peace. No matter how successful you become, someone else will always seem more successful. Approval is a finish line that keeps moving. The tragedy is that many people spend their entire lives chasing it. From the moment we are born, we learn to seek acceptance. As children, we smile when our parents praise us. In school, we work for good grades and recognition. As adults, we chase promotions, followers, status, and admiration. There is nothing wrong with appreciation. The problem begins when appreciation becomes your identity. When your happiness depends on someone else's opinion, you've handed them the keys to your peace. Think about a puppet controlled by strings. The puppet cannot move unless someone else pulls. Many people live emotionally the same way. A compliment lifts their mood. A criticism destroys it. A stranger's opinion determines their confidence. Their emotional state belongs to everyone except themselves. That is not freedom. Freedom begins the day you stop asking, "Do they approve of me?" and start asking, "Do I approve of the person I'm becoming?" Those two questions lead to completely different lives. The first builds a performer. The second builds a person. Imagine wearing a mask every day. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Eventually, it becomes normal. Soon, you forget where the mask ends and your real face begins. This is what happens when approval becomes your greatest goal. You begin changing your opinions to fit the room, laughing at jokes you don't find funny, agreeing with ideas you don't believe, pretending to enjoy things that leave you empty, not because you're dishonest, because you're afraid that being yourself won't be enough. But here's the paradox. The more you try to make everyone like you, the less anyone truly knows you. People aren't connecting with the real you. They're connecting with the version you created for their approval. That kind of acceptance always feels empty because deep inside, you know they haven't accepted the real person, only the performance. One of the greatest questions you can ask yourself is this: if no one applauded me, would I still do this? Would you still pursue your career? Would you still chase that dream? Would you still post that picture? Would you still buy that expensive watch? Would you still work so hard? Your answer reveals whether you're living for purpose or performance. There's a profound difference. Purpose creates fulfillment. Performance creates exhaustion. Think about a flower growing in a quiet field. It blooms beautifully, not because someone is watching, not because someone will praise it, simply because blooming is its nature. Human beings were never meant to live differently. Your purpose isn't to impress the world. Your purpose is to become fully yourself. Unfortunately, modern life constantly encourages comparison. Every day we are shown carefully edited versions of other people's lives, their vacations, their achievements, their relationships, their successes, rarely their struggles, rarely their failures, rarely their doubts. Comparison has become a habit, but comparison is built upon illusion. You're comparing your behind-the-scenes life to someone else's highlight reel. That comparison will always make you feel incomplete. Remember this. There will always be someone richer, smarter, more attractive, more talented. If your happiness depends on being better than everyone else, you'll never find peace. There's always another mountain. Real confidence isn't believing you're better than other people. It's realizing you no longer need to compare yourself to them. Imagine climbing a staircase. If you spend every step looking sideways at everyone else's progress, you'll stumble. But if you focus on your own next step, you'll eventually reach the top. Life rewards progress, no comparison. Another trap of approval is people-pleasing. People pleasers often appear kind, helpful, generous, and many genuinely are. But beneath that kindness is often an invisible fear, the fear of disappointing others. So they say yes when they desperately want to say no. They overcommit, overgive, overextend themselves, until one day there is nothing left. Kindness without boundaries becomes self-neglect. Helping others should never require abandoning yourself. One of the most liberating words in the English language is simply no, not spoken with anger, not spoken with guilt, spoken with peace. Every time you say no to something that doesn't align with your values, you say yes to yourself, and that is an act of self-respect. There's another beautiful truth. The people who truly love you don't require constant performance. You don't need to impress them. They don't expect perfection. They simply expect honesty. Authentic relationships survive honesty. Performative relationships survive appearances. Know the difference. As you stop chasing approval, something remarkable happens. Your decisions become simpler. You stop asking, "What will people think?" and begin asking, "Is this true to who I am?" That single question becomes a compass. It guides every decision, every relationship, every opportunity, every dream, because your values become stronger than public opinion. Not everyone will understand you. Some people will dislike your boundaries. Others will criticize your choices. Some may even walk away. Let them. The people who leave because you stop pretending were attached to the mask, not the person. There's incredible freedom in accepting this. Imagine carrying a heavy costume you've worn for years. The moment you finally remove it, you feel lighter. You breathe easier. You move freely. Authenticity feels exactly like that. Not because life becomes easier, because you stop carrying what was never yours to carry. Approval loses its power. Criticism loses its sting. Praise becomes pleasant, but unnecessary. Your peace no longer depends on applause. It depends on alignment. Alignment between your values, your actions, and your character. That is where confidence is born, not in compliments, not in achievements, not in popularity. Confidence grows every time you keep a promise to yourself. Every time you choose integrity over image. Every time you remain authentic despite pressure to conform. Eventually, people notice something different about you. You seem calmer, more grounded, less desperate, not because your life became perfect, because your self-worth no longer belongs to the crowd. It belongs to you. Remember this. The loudest applause eventually fades. The greatest fame eventually disappears. Even the strongest opinions change with time, but character endures. Always choose character. Live honestly. Speak truthfully. Act consistently. Not because everyone will approve, because you will. And in the end, that is the only approval capable of giving you lasting peace. Stop chasing acceptance. Stop performing for applause. Stop shrinking yourself to fit into rooms that were never meant for you. Become the person you respect when no one else is watching. Because when you no longer need the world's approval, you become something incredibly rare. Someone who is truly free. Chapter 8. Master the Art of Boundaries. Imagine owning a beautiful house. The doors are unlocked. The windows are wide open. Anyone can walk in whenever they choose. Some visitors are kind. They remove their shoes. They respect your home. They leave it cleaner than they found it. Others enter without asking. They make a mess. They take what isn't theirs. They criticize your furniture. Then they leave, expecting they'll always be welcome. Whose fault is it? The people who entered or the owner who never established a boundary? Life works much the same way. Many of the emotional struggles we experience are not caused by a lack of kindness. They are caused by a lack of boundaries. People often misunderstand boundaries. They imagine walls, distance, coldness, rejection. But healthy boundaries are none of those things. A wall says, no one gets in. A boundary says, the right people are welcome, but they must enter with respect. There's a profound difference. One is built from fear. The other is built from self-respect. Think about a garden. A gardener doesn't build a fence because they hate the outside world. They build it because they value what grows inside. Your peace deserves the same protection. Your time deserves the same protection. Your heart deserves the same protection. Not because people are evil, but because not everyone knows how to care for what is valuable. One of the greatest lies many people believe is this: if I say no, people won't like me. Perhaps some won't, but ask yourself another question. Do I really want to be liked for constantly betraying myself? That question changes everything. Imagine saying yes to every request, every invitation, every favor, every emotional burden someone asks you to carry. At first, people call you generous, helpful, reliable, but slowly, you begin feeling exhausted, resentful, invisible, because every yes to everyone else became a no to yourself. Eventually, there is nothing left to give. The problem wasn't kindness. The problem was the absence of limits. Healthy people understand something simple. Every yes has a cost. When you say yes to things that drain your energy, you're saying no to your peace. When you say yes to unhealthy relationships, you're saying no to healthier ones. When you say yes to constant distraction, you're saying no to your future. Every decision is an exchange. Choose carefully. There's remarkable strength in saying one small word. No, not with anger, not with guilt, not with apology. Just no. Many people struggle with this because they confuse boundaries with selfishness. But imagine you're on an airplane. Before takeoff, the flight attendant gives one important instruction. In the event of an emergency, put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. Why? Because you cannot help anyone if you've already lost consciousness. Life follows the same principle. Taking care of yourself is not selfish. It is what allows you to genuinely care for others. Selfishness says, only I matter. Self-respect says, I matter too. There is a world of difference. Some people will resist your boundaries. Don't be surprised. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries often feel uncomfortable when you finally create them. They may call you different, cold, difficult, selfish. Remember this. The people who become angry when you set healthy boundaries are often the ones who benefited most from you having none. That realization is painful, but it is also freeing. Imagine carrying someone else's backpack every day. At first, you don't mind. Eventually, it becomes heavy. Then one day, you hand it back. The other person becomes upset, not because the backpack belongs to you, but because they've grown comfortable watching you carry it. Boundaries simply return responsibility to where it belongs. Everyone is responsible for their own emotional life, not yours. One of the hardest lessons in life is accepting that you cannot save everyone. Some people are committed to chaos. Some repeatedly make the same destructive choices. Some mistake your kindness for permission to continue hurting themselves and you. Love does not require rescuing. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and allow people to face the consequences of their own decisions. That isn't cruelty. It's wisdom. Trees don't grow stronger because someone holds them upright forever. They grow stronger by learning to withstand the wind. People are no different. There is another type of boundary that many overlook, the boundary with yourself. How often do you break promises you've made to yourself? I'll start tomorrow. Just one more hour. I'll skip it today. Every broken promise quietly weakens your self-trust. Imagine having a friend who constantly made promises and never kept them. Eventually, you would stop believing them. You treat yourself the same way. Boundaries are not only about protecting yourself from others. They are also about becoming someone you can rely on. Every time you honor your own word, your confidence grows. Not because someone praised you, because you've proven to yourself that your word has value. Boundaries also determine the quality of your relationships. Without them, resentment quietly grows. People begin expecting what was once a gift. Kindness becomes obligation. Generosity becomes entitlement. Love becomes exhaustion. Healthy boundaries prevent resentment before it begins. They create clarity. People know where they stand. They know what is acceptable. They know what is not. Clarity is kindness. Confusion is not. There will always be people who misunderstand your boundaries. Some will accuse you of changing. Smile. They're right. You have changed. You're no longer sacrificing your peace to make everyone else comfortable. Growth always looks uncomfortable to people who prefer the old version of you. Keep growing anyway. Imagine a river flowing through a valley. It does not apologize for the banks that give it direction. Without boundaries, the river becomes a flood. With boundaries, it becomes powerful enough to carve canyons through mountains. Your life needs banks too. Without boundaries, your energy scatters. Your focus disappears. Your identity becomes shaped by everyone else's expectations. With boundaries, your life gains direction. Your relationships become healthier. Your peace becomes stronger. Your purpose becomes clearer. One of the greatest signs of maturity is no longer feeling guilty for protecting your well-being. You realize that saying no to others often means saying yes to the life you're trying to build, and that life deserves your protection. Remember this. You teach people how to treat you by what you consistently allow. If you accept disrespect, people assume it's acceptable. If you tolerate manipulation, people assume you'll continue. If you abandon yourself, others will eventually do the same. But when you respect yourself, the right people naturally follow your example. The wrong people naturally leave. Both outcomes are gifts. As you become stronger in your boundaries, your world becomes quieter. Not because fewer people love you, because fewer people use you. And there's an enormous difference. Protect your peace. Protect your time. Protect your values. Protect your future. Not by building walls around your heart, but by placing strong gates around what matters most. Because the strongest people are not those who let everyone into their lives. They're the ones who know exactly who deserves a key. And once you master the art of boundaries, you no longer fear losing people. You only fear losing yourself. That is the beginning of true freedom. Chapter 9, Becoming Unbothered. There is a quiet kind of strength that few people ever develop. It isn't found in winning every argument. It isn't measured by how loudly you defend yourself. And it certainly isn't built by proving people wrong. It is the ability to remain at peace in a world that constantly tries to disturb you. Most people spend their lives reacting. A rude comment ruins their mood. A delayed reply creates anxiety. A stranger's opinion lingers in their mind for days. Without realizing it, they give complete strangers the power to control their emotions. Think about that for a moment. Someone you've never met, someone who knows nothing about your dreams, can determine whether you have a good day or a bad one. That isn't emotional intelligence. That's emotional dependence. True freedom begins the moment you stop handing other people remote control to your happiness. Life will never stop testing you. Someone will criticize you unfairly. Someone will misunderstand your intentions. Someone will reject you. Someone will succeed before you. Someone will treat you with less kindness than you deserve. These experiences are unavoidable. Your reaction to them is not. This is where emotionally resilient people become different. They don't ask, why is this happening to me? They ask, how do I want to respond? That small shift changes everything. One question comes from victimhood. The other comes from responsibility. And responsibility is where personal power begins. Many people confuse becoming unbothered with becoming emotionless. They believe the goal is to stop caring. It isn't. The goal is to care wisely, to recognize that your emotions are valuable, too valuable to be handed to every passing opinion, too valuable to be wasted on meaningless conflict, too valuable to be controlled by people who have never earned your respect. Every day, life presents countless invitations to lose your peace. A careless driver cuts you off. Someone leaves a sarcastic comment online. A coworker takes credit for your idea. A friend forgets an important promise. Each moment asks the same question. Will you carry this with you? Most people answer yes without even realizing it. They replay the conversation in their minds. They imagine clever responses hours later. They lose sleep over events that lasted only minutes. The event ends quickly. The suffering continues because they refuse to let it go. Holding on to anger is like carrying a burning coal in your hand while waiting to throw it at someone else. The longer you hold it, the more it burns you. Learning to let go is not weakness. It is self-preservation. There is enormous wisdom in recognizing what belongs to you and what doesn't. Someone else's bad mood does not belong to you. Someone else's insecurity does not belong to you. Someone else's opinion does not define you. People often project onto others what they haven't healed within themselves. The person constantly criticizing may be fighting their own feelings of inadequacy. The person who gossips about everyone often fears being judged themselves. The person who needs to put others down may secretly struggle to feel worthy. Understanding this doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it does help you stop taking everything personally. Not every arrow fired in your direction was actually aimed at you. Some people are simply shooting at their own pain. One of the greatest lessons life teaches is that not every battle deserves your participation. There's an old saying, never wrestle with a pig. You both get dirty and the pig enjoys it. Some arguments have no winner. Some people don't want understanding. They want conflict. If you give them your attention, you've already lost. Walking away isn't surrender. It's strategy. There is remarkable confidence in silence. When someone insults you, they often expect an emotional reaction. Your anger becomes their victory. Your frustration becomes their entertainment. But calmness changes the entire conversation. Calmness says, your words cannot control my inner world. That is real power, not because you've defeated another person, because you've mastered yourself. One of the greatest habits you can develop is asking a simple question before reacting. Will this matter a year from now? Most of the things that steal our peace today won't even be remembered next month. Yet we sacrifice hours of happiness over moments that time will quietly erase. Perspective is one of the greatest protectors of peace. The older you become, the more you realize how little truly deserves your emotional energy. You stop trying to win every disagreement. You stop correcting every misunderstanding. You stop proving yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Not because you become indifferent, because you become wise. There is freedom in allowing people to have incorrect opinions about you. Some will think you're too quiet. Others will think you're too distant. Some will believe you've changed. Let them. Their perception is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is your character. Eventually, the truth becomes visible without your help. Actions have a way of outliving rumors. Consistency has a way of silencing criticism. Time has a way of revealing reality. Trust those things. The need to constantly defend yourself usually comes from insecurity. Security is different. Security knows that truth doesn't require endless explanation. A mountain never argues about its height. The ocean never debates its depth. They simply exist. Your confidence should become like that. Steady, quiet, unshaken. Another important step toward becoming unbothered is learning to release the need for control. You cannot control what people say. You cannot control how quickly success arrives. You cannot control whether everyone appreciates your kindness. But you can control your honesty, your effort, your discipline, your attitude. Focus there. Everything else belongs to life. There is peace in accepting uncertainty. Not because uncertainty is comfortable, because resisting it changes nothing. The strongest people are rarely those with the easiest lives. They are the ones who learn not to collapse every time life became unpredictable. Like a tree rooted deeply in the earth, they bend with the wind instead of breaking against it. Flexibility is not a weakness. It is wisdom. Every difficult experience carries a hidden lesson. Criticism teaches humility. Failure teaches resilience. Disappointment teaches perspective. Rejection teaches self-worth. If you only focus on the pain, you miss the gift. Growth often arrives disguised as inconvenience. Perhaps the greatest sign that you become emotionally free is this. You stop needing the last word. You stop needing revenge. You stop needing everyone to agree with you. You stop needing life to unfold exactly according to your plans. Instead, you trust yourself. You trust your values. You trust that peace is worth protecting more than pride. And something remarkable happens. The same situations that once consumed you now barely disturb you. Not because life became easier, because your foundation became stronger. You begin realizing that happiness isn't found by controlling the world around you. It's found by mastering the world within you. That is the heart of becoming unbothered, not pretending nothing matters, but choosing carefully what truly does. Choose your battles. Choose your thoughts. Choose your responses. Choose your peace. Because every time you refuse to allow someone else's chaos to become your own, you take another step toward freedom. And in a world where everyone seems easily offended, easily distracted, and easily controlled, the person who remains calm, grounded, and unshaken becomes something incredibly rare, not because they never face storms, but because they have finally learned how to carry sunshine within themselves. Chapter 10, The Authentic Life. There comes a moment in every person's life when pretending becomes more exhausting than being honest. For some, it happens after years of chasing approval. For others, it comes after one painful betrayal. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in the middle of an ordinary day, when you suddenly realize you spent too much of your life becoming the person everyone expected, and not enough time becoming the person you truly are. That realization changes everything. Throughout this journey, we've talked about protecting your peace. We've talked about fake people, boundaries, silence, emotional freedom, and the courage to stop living for other people's opinions. But all of these lessons point toward one destination: authenticity. Because authenticity is not something you achieve overnight. It is something you uncover. Think about a sculptor standing before a massive block of marble. Most people believe the sculptor creates the statue. The sculptor sees it differently. They believe the statue is already inside the stone. Their job is simply to remove everything that doesn't belong. Your life works the same way. You don't become authentic by adding more. You become authentic by removing what isn't really you. The need to impress, the fear of rejection, the habit of pretending, the endless comparison, the masks you've worn for years. Little by little, you remove them until one day, the real person finally appears. Many people spend decades building a life that looks successful from the outside: a respectable career, a beautiful home, a busy social life, a carefully managed image. Yet when they're finally alone, something still feels missing. Why? Because external success can never replace internal alignment. You can fool the world. You cannot fool yourself. Every night, when the room becomes quiet, you meet the one person who knows the truth, you. And that relationship determines the quality of every other relationship in your life. When you betray yourself repeatedly, you slowly lose confidence. Not because you're incapable, because your own heart no longer trusts you. Every time you silence your values to fit in, you weaken that trust. Every time you choose honesty over approval, you strengthen it. Authenticity is built one decision at a time. One honest conversation. One healthy boundary. One courageous choice. Again and again, people often ask how to find themselves. Perhaps that's the wrong question. Maybe you don't need to find yourself. Maybe you simply need to stop abandoning yourself. Every time you ignore your intuition, you leave yourself behind. Every time you tolerate disrespect to avoid conflict, you leave yourself behind. Every time you live according to someone else's expectations, you leave yourself behind. Coming back to yourself is a real journey. It requires courage, because authenticity has a price. Not everyone will understand you. Some friendships will end. Some relationships will drift away. Some people prefer the version of you that never said no, the version that always agreed, the version that never challenged them. When you become authentic, those people may disappear. Do not mistake that for failure. Sometimes losing people is how you find peace. Autumn does not apologize for losing its leaves. It understands that letting go prepares the tree for new growth. Life follows the same rhythm. Every ending creates space for something healthier to begin. There is remarkable beauty in becoming ordinary again. The world constantly tells you to stand out, to become famous, to be extraordinary, to be unforgettable. But truly authentic people are not trying to become extraordinary. They are simply trying to become real. Ironically, that is what makes them extraordinary, because authenticity has become rare. Honesty has become rare. Humility has become rare. Peace has become rare. The person who possesses these qualities naturally stands apart, not because they seek attention, because they no longer need it. One of the greatest signs that you're living authentically is this. Your private life begins matching your public life. You become the same person everywhere, at work, at home, with strangers, with family, online, offline. There is no performance to maintain, no image to protect, no mask to remember, only you, and there is incredible freedom in that. Think about how much energy people spend pretending to be happier than they are, more successful, more confident, more important, more connected. Authenticity returns all of that energy to your life. Instead of maintaining an image, you begin building a character. Character never goes out of style. There will always be someone richer than you, more talented, more attractive, more successful. If your identity depends on competing with them, you'll never know peace. But if your identity depends on living according to your own values, comparison loses its power. You begin measuring success differently. Success becomes sleeping peacefully at night, keeping your word, protecting your peace, loving deeply, growing consistently, leaving every place a little better than you found it. Those victories rarely make headlines, but they build remarkable lives. Years from now, people may not remember everything you accomplished. They may forget your job title. They may forget how much money you earned. But they will remember how you made them feel. Whether you were genuine, whether your words match your actions, whether your presence made life lighter or heavier. Authenticity leaves fingerprints on every life it touches. There's one final truth worth carrying with you. You were never meant to be accepted by everyone. The sun shines on the entire world. Yet some people still complain that it's too hot. Others complain when it disappears. You cannot please everyone, and you were never asked to. Your responsibility is much simpler. Live honestly, speak truthfully, love sincerely, walk away peacefully, continue growing. The right people will recognize you, not because you demanded attention, because authenticity has a way of finding authenticity. When two genuine people meet, there's no need for performance, no competition, no pretending, only understanding. That kind of connection is one of life's greatest rewards. As this journey comes to an end, remember what you've learned. You are not antisocial. You simply value genuine connection. You are not difficult. You have learned the importance of boundaries. You are not cold. You have stopped chasing people who disturb your peace. You are not arrogant. You have become comfortable standing alone when necessary. And perhaps most importantly, you no longer need to explain who you are. Your life will do that for you. Walk quietly. Protect your energy. Choose your people carefully. Stay true to your values. And never trade your authenticity for temporary acceptance. Because the greatest achievement in life is not becoming someone the world applauds. It is becoming someone you are proud to meet every morning when you look in the mirror. That is the authentic life. And once you begin living it, you'll discover that the peace you spent years searching for was waiting inside you all along. Conclusion: choose peace over performance. If you've listened to this entire audiobook, you've probably noticed something. This was never really a book about avoiding people. It was a book about choosing people wisely. The title, I'm Not Antisocial, I'm Anti-Fake, was never an invitation to isolate yourself from the world. It was an invitation to stop losing yourself in it. There's a profound difference. Many people spend their lives trying to become more accepted. Very few spend their lives becoming more authentic. Yet authenticity has always been the quieter and ultimately more rewarding path. Throughout this journey, we've explored 10 simple but powerful ideas. You discover that enjoying solitude doesn't make you antisocial. It makes you emotionally selective. You learn why fake people often wear masks, not because they're evil, but because they're afraid. You learn that you don't owe the world an explanation for protecting your peace, that your energy is your greatest currency, that meaningful relationships will always be more valuable than endless connections. You discover the strength of silence, the freedom that comes from letting go of other people's approval, the importance of healthy boundaries, the calm confidence of becoming unbothered, and finally, the courage to live an authentic life. At first, these lessons may seem unrelated, but they're all connected by one simple truth. The more comfortable you become with yourself, the less you need validation from anyone else. That is the real transformation, because when you stop chasing acceptance, you begin attracting genuine connection. When you stop pretending, you begin discovering who truly belongs in your life. When you stop performing, you finally begin living. There is something remarkable about authenticity. It cannot be copied. It cannot be manufactured. And it cannot be sustained through appearances alone. Eventually, every mask becomes too heavy. Every performance becomes exhausting. Every attempt to be someone else quietly steals a little more of who you really are. Life becomes much simpler the day you decide to remove the mask. Not because everyone will suddenly understand you. They won't. Some people will misunderstand your boundaries. Some will think you've changed. Others will become uncomfortable because you're no longer willing to tolerate what once disturbed your peace. Let them. Growth has always made some people uncomfortable. A tree doesn't stop growing because the shade changes. Neither should you. One of the greatest mistakes we make is believing that being alone is the opposite of being loved. It isn't. Being disconnected from yourself is far more dangerous than being by yourself. A person surrounded by hundreds of people can still feel completely alone. Another person sitting quietly with a book, a cup of coffee, or a peaceful walk through nature can feel deeply fulfilled. The difference isn't the number of people around you. It's the quality of your relationship with yourself. Because every relationship you build in life will eventually reflect the relationship you have within. If you don't value your peace, you'll give it away too easily. If you don't respect your time, others won't either. If you don't believe you're enough, you'll spend your life begging the world to convince you otherwise. Everything begins inside. The world often celebrates visibility, but peace rarely comes from being seen. It comes from being known by a few, loved genuinely, respected honestly. There is something incredibly freeing about having a small circle filled with real people instead of a crowded room filled with strangers. Depth has always been more valuable than popularity. Always. Remember the moments in your life that truly mattered. They probably weren't the moments when the most people were watching. They were the quiet conversations, the loyal friend who stayed, the person who believed in you when no one else did. The moments when you could completely be yourself without fear of judgment. Those are the moments that shape a meaningful life. Not applause, not followers, not appearances, just authenticity. There is another lesson worth carrying with you. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. That isn't arrogance. It's wisdom. You don't leave the front door of your home unlocked simply because you're kind. You protect what matters. Your peace deserves the same protection. Your heart deserves the same protection. Your future deserves the same protection. Boundaries are not barriers to love. They are invitations for a healthy love to enter. Never feel guilty for protecting the life you're trying to build. As you continue forward, people will notice something different about you. You won't react to every insult. You won't explain every decision. You won't chase every invitation. You won't seek approval from people who have never taken the time to truly know you. Some will call you distant. Others will call you mature. It doesn't matter. Labels belong to other people. Your life belongs to you. There is enormous peace in understanding that your worth is not determined by how many people like you. Your worth has never been a vote. It has never depended on popularity. It has never required permission. You were valuable before anyone applauded you. And you'll remain valuable long after the applause fades. The strongest people in the world aren't those with the loudest voices. They're the ones who have become comfortable enough with themselves that silence no longer feels lonely. They don't fear eating alone, traveling alone, working quietly, starting over, walking away, because they've discovered something many people spend a lifetime searching for: Home, not a physical place, a state of being. A place inside themselves where peace no longer depends on circumstances. That is the greatest freedom life can offer. As this audiobook comes to an end, remember one simple idea. You were never meant to be everyone's person. You were meant to be your true self. The right people will recognize you. The wrong people will misunderstand you. Both outcomes are perfectly okay. Stop trying to fit into every room. Start building a life where you don't have to pretend. Protect your peace. Protect your values. Protect your authenticity. And never apologize for choosing a life that feels genuine over one that merely looks impressive, because the people who change the world are rarely the ones trying to impress everyone. They're the ones courageous enough to remain themselves, even when the world asks them to become someone else. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope these lessons stay with you long after this audiobook ends. Walk quietly. Love sincerely. Choose your people carefully. Guard your peace. And remember, you're not antisocial. You're simply no longer willing to trade your authenticity for acceptance. And that may be one of the healthiest decisions you'll ever make.